I don't know who has been here and who hasn't. I see some that probably have not been here. So let's do a really quick recap of what we've talked about so far. We have talked about what marriage burnout is, and I can give you a quick synopsis of what that is. But first and foremost, I just want to kind of let you know, I don't have uh, any assessments for you to do today, just to let you know. But let's say,
Oh,
marriage, you want me to get you one? I can get you one. No worries. Um,
oh,
so, marriage burnout is actually pretty common. And it's actually manifests as a period of intense psychological and physical draining and exhaustion. In our previous sessions, we had talked about what that looked like and how often you felt these various feelings, from being tired to, I'm over it. Or let me say it the way Zara says, I'm over it.
Over.
Yes. And some of that comes from being emotionally exhausted. So looking at your relationship as a bank, and whether or not you are investing into your relationship, or or by investing, depositing, or withdrawing. And at this time, when you're feeling emotionally drained from it, it's because you've been investing while somebody else has been withdrawing. And it's not
Mm,
equal, and it's not equivalent. And it's like, you're exhausted from all of that. So we actually kind of talked about the different emotional imbalances, and how those contributed to feeling just exhausted. So we went over that as well. So we also talked about expectations versus settling.
mhm.
And then we talked, let me see what else did we talk about. And how emotional exhaustion is also related to failed expectation. So I think I caught you up. Am I right,
That
Sar?
sounds like it. Yeah, that sounds about it. Yeah.
Okay. So today's one that we're going to continue on with is that we're going to start with the different stages of marriage. If you
Oh,
ever like Google it, you'll find that the different stages of marriages will go from people, the I guess scientists or theorists have go from anywhere from 3 to 7. So there's different ones, different stages, or different theorists that you can look at. But for today, we're gonna make it simple. We're just gonna kind of go over 3 of them. Because we want to make it basic. When we start talking about more than three, we're taking it even further apart, and we actually kind of go into years and everything else. And we don't want to do all of that.
hmm, okay.
So there's 3 stages, and this is the time that you can write it down. The 3 stages are romantic love. Then there's disillusionment and distraction, which actually can be seen as that time that you're doing some discernment. And then in the
Mm,
stage 3 would be either the dissolution of a marriage, adjustment with resignation, which means that you just over it again, but you're just going to settle in it and settle into it, or adjustment with contentment. So
mm,
there's the 3 stages, and I'll repeat it again for you all, so you all have it again. The first stage is going to be romantic love, and during that romantic love is the honeymoon stages.
mm.
The second the second one is the
Best part.
disillusionment. The best part, yeah, the best part. The second one is the disillusionment and distraction, which kind of leads to discernment. And then the third stage is resolution or adjustment. And then if with adjustment, you're either adjustment with resignation, or adjustment with contentment. So there's actually 2 parts of adjustment. Okay. So let's kind of talk about what those 3 stages are. So we'll just kind of start that. So that stage 1, that romantic love, is, like Zara says, the best stage in your relationship. That is usually when it's the honeymoon phase. Everybody's happy. You're giddy. You're just full of passion. You can't you can't see nothing. This person's like the best thing since sliced bread.
Mm,
They're just wonderful. And then life happens. And then life
mm.
happens. And then you realize that this person is not exactly who you thought they would be.
Uh-oh.
And that time. And that could be, and you usually feel that during that disillusionment and distraction stage. And disillusionment really meaning, or let's go with distraction. We'll go with, yeah, let's go with that. So distractions could be from balancing school, work, finances, children, extracurricular activities. It's life. It's when
Mm,
life happens.
mhm,
And those life happening is when you all or you each other are not a priority because everything else is a priority. And
mm,
because everything else is a priority, the honeymoon stage where you wanted to spend every waking moment with this person and they just was like, they're just the best thing ever. During this time, you just don't have the time to spend every waking moment with this person. You've got other priorities, you've got other responsibilities. That is what the distraction is. And during this time, during that distraction, you either have a choice. You either are intentional about spending time together, or you let the distractions take over your life.
mm,
And then
mm.
the disillusionment is when you're looking at your marriage and it's not all peaches and cream like you thought it would be. You did you thought, oh my gosh, marriage is easy, because in a romantic stage it is easy. It's
Mm,
when that stage 2 happens, when you realize this is hard. This is hard work every single day. So that's that busting your bubble of what your ideal marriage is and what reality is. And that
mm.
reality is not the fun one. It's not the part that you ever envisioned. Because I honestly think and I know I'm speaking for myself, and I can ask you all, have you ever in your life been told that marriage is the hardest job you'll ever have?
Mm. Anybody? I was going to answer, but then I was like, let somebody else answer first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If they don't jump in, I'll jump in. Because I was told that, like it's one of the hardest things that you would ever do. And I got married young. So they
You
said it
did,
was one of the hardest things I would do.
so you were told, but you didn't listen because you were stuck in that romantic love.
You know what it was? Yep, it was. I'm in the romantic love, and it was like, well, I've done hard things before. I can handle it. I got it.
Mm.
Hmm. Yeah.
I saw somebody heart that. Does anybody else can share whether or not they were told that marriage is the hardest job that you will ever do? I see a couple. It
I
is,
see James. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah. And it is the hardest job because every single day you have to work at it. And you can't take a break. There's
Mm,
no breaks in marriages. There's no summer vacations in marriages. There's no holiday breaks in marriages. You're living with this person day in and day out, and you're learning about this person, and you're learning new things. And on top of that, you're evolving, and so are they.
mm,
And sometimes that evolvement that happens, you're not evolving together, especially when distractions are part of it. And
mm,
when you're distracted and you've got other things, you're changing, you're growing, and they're changing and they're growing. But are you changing and growing together?
mm.
And during this time, it's hard to do that. So
Wow.
then we move on to stage 3. And just so you know, give you an idea of how long stage 2 is. Stage 2 is as long as your kids are there. So
That's
your kid, go ahead,
that's
go ahead,
interesting.
John.
I was gonna say that's interesting because Tanya said I was told that raising kids is the hardest job, but marriage is serious teamwork. So now that you mentioned the kids
Uh-huh.
piece.
Yeah. Well, see, the difference though is the kids grow up and they go away.
Yeah,
That's the hopes. That's the hopes.
that's the plan. That's the thought. Yeah.
Right. but your marriage is there forever or as long as you're in it. But like I said, the stage 2 can last, and if some people, the thoughts are it can last from 6 years to 20 something years, 25 years. And the reason it goes that long is there's such a big difference in how long that stage lasts is because of the age of the kids. So if your youngest child is in your house until they're in their 20s and your oldest child is 40, then you might be in that stage for 40 years.
Mm. Oh,
And that's just
goodness.
because your children are still taking a top seat and they
Mm.
still are taking away some of that attention. And of course, if they're living with you, they can be the cause of many, many arguments and many, many disagreements because
Mm-hmm.
them and themselves, no matter their age, is still a stress or a stressor. So then we move on to stage 3. And this is the stage that you start contemplating whether or not you want this marriage to continue.
Mm.
And reality is that happens with most people, most marriages. Most marriages, actually, I don't know of any marriage that you don't sit there and think about whether or not you want it to continue when you all are in different places. You just wonder. And then what happens at that time is that when you decide, and disillusion is when you decide you don't want to do this anymore. You don't
I
want to
can
do
do
this.
bad all by myself.
Exactly. You saw that movie too?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that idea that I can do bad all by myself. I don't need this. And then so that's when you say, okay, I don't want to do it. And that's the beginning of the end. Or it can be the beginning of reunification. It kind of depends.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, you're in the adjustment stage. If you choose not to do dissolution, then you go into the adjustment stage. And during this time, you either have the contentment or resignation. So when in the resignation, if you decide you're going to go there, you're going to decide, I'm just going to just forget. I'm giving up. I'm just going to give up that the marriage is going to get any better. It's just going to be this way. And here's the other one. I'd rather be in this than go out and on the dating scene.
Ooh.
I know what I got.
I hear the dating scene interesting today. A lot of people, Dr. Tracy, I was here that jumping in there, that they don't like what they're seeing on the dating scene these days.
Right.
So some
So
people are kind of like, yeah, I might want to try to just fix this one.
and
Mm.
that's the adjustment with resignation. Like, forget it. I'm done.
Mm.
I'd rather, instead of going out there and trying to figure out who I want to be with, or trying to go in there and getting to know somebody and trying to figure out if I really like them or if they're really who they say they are and everything else. I
Mm.
know the lesser of two evils. Let's look at it that way. Lesser of two evils is saying, I'm just going to resign myself to staying in this. That's the adjustment with resignation. And then you've got the adjustment with contentment. And the adjustment is when you all decide to work on being friends. You decide that you are going to reestablish what your marriage is going to look like. Where you all have come to the agreement, like, I am going to decide we're going to work together. We're going to be partners. We're going to decide that we're going to be best friends. We're going to make a commitment to stay in this the rest of our lives, or until whenever.
Okay.
And that is that time where that's what that contentment is. Like, okay, we've done it. We've been there, done that. We've gone through all of our mess, and now let's just make this work. And I've decided that I like you enough that you're gonna be my friend, and not only my friend, my best friend, because you can't just be friends with your spouse. Your spouse has to be your best friend, and you have to be theirs, and they have to be yours, and you have to be theirs. Yeah, that's what I want to say. They have
Mm.
to be yours, and yours have to be, and you have to be theirs. It doesn't work if one of with the other if one of you decided that they're not going to be the best friends, because you all have to be on the same page. You all have to be on the same agreement, and that is
Um,
what the different stages are in marriages.
mm.
And that's just breaking that on a broader scale versus breaking it down into seven. And this is actually based on, of course, a study by Larson. So I'm going to break off there for a second and ask you all any thoughts on what I said. And then I can also look up, if you want, I can also look up a test to see what it is, where you're at.
That piece, Dr. Tracy, about the friendship piece, is it any research or thought about it in terms of like do some marriages not get to that point? Because see, for me, and I'll speak like from my instance, it's like I usually have to have that first.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, the way my attraction pattern and different things like that works is some of the reason that I kind of have to have this friendship type of thing before I even have sexual attraction usually. So, but is the friendship piece a huge piece that even that you've seen, where this couple is not surviving because the romance didn't have its own feet to stand on, so they needed something more solid? Is that a
Well,
thing?
I'm saying yes, but I'm also going to say the reason I'm even going there with that is because in reality, if you, when you're in that distraction phase, or if you're in the disillusionment phase, you stop being friends
Mm,
because you're not working on
hmm
your friendship.
hmm That makes
You're no
sense.
longer a priority.
Ooh, anybody ever felt like you weren't a priority? I see a heart. I see a couple hearts in there. Like, yeah. Mm, wow.
So yes,
Wow.
there's more than that. Mhm. So actually, I'm actually gonna, since Dar wanted us to do something like that, I'm going to put a link in the chat that you all can take on your own, and it should email you the results. Hopefully, it doesn't cost anything.
Mm.
Um,
What's this a test for? This is a assessment for
to
the
see,
state the stage we're in.
yeah, it's not going to actually give you that. It's just going to kind of show you um, some important areas of your relationship and how things are going. So it
Okay.
just kind of gives you an idea of where you're at.
Mm,
So
yeah.
let me text that to myself so I can send it to you all.
Okay. While you're doing that, does anybody have any idea where you think you are, or where, like, if you think about these stages, like, where did like, what are your thoughts on these different stages, and where do you think that would be the most, I guess you could say, not even say the challenge area, because we know that when we get in that disillusionment area, but where do you think things started shifting for you? Or any thoughts in regards to these stages so far that Dr. Tracy has laid out? What are your thoughts on this? Talk to us. We got open floor now. Open
Do we have a
floor.
do we have a quiet group today?
Yeah, they're quiet today.
I like talking. I
I
like
do
to hear
too.
you all. I like to hear them talk though.
Yeah, me too. I like, and I'm also that way. I'm also that way because, again, with a lot of these things, especially with these master classes and some of the sessions that we're in, it's like to really know how people are processing the information and
Mm-hmm.
how it's actually falling on our hearts, how we're actually able to apply it, where we see ourselves in it. And I get that everybody's not in the marriage, and some people have had a divorce, but these skills, I mean, like the skills, the tips, the knowledge here, I think is just what sets us up. So being able to return to love if we weren't, like if we've been divorced, but if we're currently in the relationship, I see this as such proactive. It's so proactive. And again, like I said, I do this stuff with couples work all the time, and it seems like a lot of people, shoot, it seems like humans are just burned out, but it seems like a lot of people are burned
Mm-hmm.
out and just their approach to life. So even though we're talking about marriage, it's almost like that we have these same stages in our life. So then, of course, it's reflected in our relationships.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I love to talk to and see where everybody is with these things and hear how you all are processing this stuff. And I see the link in Dr. Tracy put the link in the chat for those of you that want to grab that link. Um, so yeah. All right, let me know what y'all thinking. It's interactive here.
I see some that are actually typing in the chat. So yes, we'll wait for a second.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Aaron says, I think my partner and I were in resignation. Mm,
Mm. And that's not uncommon
hmm
to think that. I mean, to even be in there, as I shared, it's not uncommon to be in that place.
hmm.
That we also
Do
have to
you
think, go ahead.
do you think that I'm looking at this romantic love part and because some of it seems like there's no time. I'm assuming that there's no timeline for how long these phases would necessarily last, right?
No.
So because I've heard some people in I've had some situations come up where people was like, listen, I couldn't even make it past the honeymoon phase.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That could happen.
yeah. Hmm.
And the reason it be is to be that way. Let me see. I actually think I found one that would take about 2 or 3 minutes to pull out as well. Um, this one's closer to what I was looking for. Um, and the reason being is that even in that stage, you're still learning about each other, and you may not like them.
Mm, mm, mm.
And the reason that happens as well is and that's could be is how well did you know the person prior?
Prior to,
Hmm.
yeah, I see that part, that
And
piece.
yes, and sometimes we think we know, and we find out we don't know.
Mm,
And a lot of times that happens because of the fact that one of those situations is that you have to look at um, the mask, how long somebody can wear a mask. And
mm,
when they're wearing a mask, you don't know. You
mm.
don't know who they are until the mask comes out. And
Okay.
part of the mask is who are they presenting themselves to be to you when you first meet them. And that you have to also know is, are they showing who they really are, or are they
Showing their
modeling who?
representative.
Right. Not only they're represented, but are they modeling you? Are they responding based on what you said? Are they
Mm,
adjusting to who you are? And then of course, when then you're at the point where you're like, oh, I get it. This isn't the person who I thought they were, because they can't hold, you can't wear a mask forever.
mm,
They typically a person can wear a mask for about 6 months.
mm. Oh
But
man.
yes, it's a long time. Yes, but
Hmm.
it can. And then on top of that, let's just throw in intimacy. If there's intimacy, then that person can kind of show themselves here and there and then put it back up. And you are likely to forgive their bad behavior when you're in love with that person.
Mm,
And but in that stage of disillusionment, you're like, yeah, yeah, that wasn't worth it. All
hmm
that wasn't worth it.
hmm
But if you're thinking about 6 months of holding before somebody can. And a lot of times, when you really realize who a person is after an argument.
Mm,
After that first, and it's not even a little argument, after that big first argument where you and them cannot agree on whatever fundamental values or morals that you all have. And whether
mm,
or not, because how a person responds in anger will actually show you who they are.
mm-hmm,
And
mm.
that's when the mask usually comes off. Or
Wow.
in some relationships, it comes off when they feel comfortable enough to feel that they have you and you're not going anywhere.
Now, what's the role of, how would you say, like, what is the role of, because again, sometimes I think we hear this stuff and then, like, even like when we say the mask comes off. So we live in a culture, obviously, where even in the romantic phases or even in the dating phases, there's the language of let me win your heart, let me capture your heart. And let me, all of those things all of those terminologies that we use. The men need to be chivalrous and this is that and the other. And sometimes I see that almost as a setup because it's things that people are doing to get you, but that's not something that they're going to do to necessarily maintain. But even aside from that, when that romantic phase has kind of shifted and you go into these other stages, these other places within the relationship, is some of the mask coming off? How can I put it? Because you know how we say, "Oh, you see their true colors," but we always use that negatively in a sense, oh, their true colors, instead of seeing where that person actually really still needs growth, still needs help, still needs support. Because I would assume that even the reality of marriage and relationships, that the relationships are a part of our support. So, and like you said, in the disillusionment, we're no longer being friends and we've stopped being friends. But it would just seem to me that that would be the moment when that should kick in the most, not the time when we just got the beautiful flowers coming, the dozen roses coming, but in the times where we actually really get to see the intimate parts of who we are. And it
Yes.
seems as if that's where we all check out. Oh, this is not what I want. That's not on my list, as if we were expecting to have a perfect person.
Mm-hmm. But you just mentioned lists, but reality is this list doesn't usually exist until you're an adult.
Mm, mm,
And not mean
mm,
and not even adult as like 20 years old when your brain is fully developed around 28.
mm,
Because beforehand, we're not thinking, and I say that because reality is when before your brain is fully developed, are you really thinking about what you want in a partner? Or are
mm,
you, other than, physical, like, oh, I want my partner to look like, oh my goodness, um,
mm,
whoever it is, whatever your celebrity crush is. Are you
mm,
thinking about that? Or are you thinking about, I want stability. I need, we need to be able to compromise. We need to be able to communicate. There needs to be some responsibility. You need to respect my boundaries. Those usually come with experience,
mm,
those thoughts. Because most of the time you're looking at the example of your parents' relationship and you're saying, okay, I like that about that, I like that about this, like that, or and that person needs to look like such and such person.
yeah. Oh,
So
wow.
the realistic idea of what you want in your marriage or your relationship or in your partner doesn't develop until experience happens.
Until that experience comes. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And I'm really wanting to hear about some of these people, some of you all's experience, because right now this is a conversation between me and Dr. Tracy. What are you, what are y'all thinking? Like, where's your experience in these? Is everybody at work? Is everybody in spaces where they can talk, or is everybody just kind of frozen with thought? Because I don't hear any pins burning necessarily. But what are you all thinking? Like, what's your experience that you all are having with this, um, and needing to take away? Talk to us. Mhm. Go ahead, Claudia, please.
Thank you. Hi. You made me think about my first argument with my husband. Uh, he was very manipulative. At the end, he said that he was going to, sorry for the noise, he was going to kill himself. And it was like, I don't even remember what happened, but it was like a silly thing. But now that you're saying this, I'm like, yes, we showed our true colors. So he showed his side, and I showed my side that I'm afraid to communicate. I was afraid of
Mm,
everything. He was in anger before he said that he was going to kill himself. And uh, that triggered, previous trauma in me.
hmm
And I was so afraid. So I kept thinking about all these triggers. And I think that, is it true that we all get triggered because we all have trauma? So during the relationship with other people, so there are a lot of things that will come up and trigger us, and we will trigger other people as well. So there's nobody's normal. If we have to redefine what normal is, I don't know what it is, but I'm rambling, I know. But you made me think a lot about that first argument that I had and how I showed up,
mm,
just keeping quiet, not communicating, being afraid of what to say, what not to say, and just focusing on him instead of me and my feelings.
mm,
Thank you for listening.
mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing. Because what I just also heard is that you learn to conform.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh my God, yes.
mhm. Yes. And so I also
Wow.
see some things in the chat.
Yeah, I was just going to read. Tanya says, she says, I refrained from marriage because one of the concerns was I would get bored. Oh, that's a big one. Then a number of my friends got divorced and the horror stories were interesting. And then Aaron says, I wish I had heard this framing sooner. I think my partner and I thought adjustment with resignation was just the next stage, not one of the options.
Yes.
Mm.
Yep. It was just, yeah, you were just at one of the options.
Mm. And I think that
Yeah.
that's so key. Like, think because again, when we talked about even when we started this session a few weeks ago, we were talking about like just that burnout, and a lot of times we give. And the only reason I'm mentioning this is because I see a lot of couples who do think that there was no more options. So then the relationship ended. When there was so much more in some situations or in some instances that could be done, or we come to one of these particular stages and we automatically, remember I was asking before, do we automatically just get, oh, we're just incompatible? And when sometimes it's not incompatibility, sometimes it's you need to learn a skill.
Hmm.
There's something that we need to exercise, or like, who was it that was just saying, like Claudia was just saying, sometimes certain traumas in our life kind of come up. And I think that for a lot of people, it's almost like the idea that, oh, we don't have time to deal with that, or this is going to automatically make us incompatible, or you triggered me, so that must mean that you and I shouldn't be together.
Hmm.
So it just seems like there's a lot of the burnout, it seems like a lot of marriages don't, and I don't know if there's any numbers for it or anything like that, but it's like, it seems like in the burnout, a lot of marriages don't recover, but not because it's not possible, but because we don't have, as I guess, like, as Aaron was saying, we didn't realize that there were more options.
Hmm. Or that there was even any tools
Any tools?
available.
Yeah. Mm,
Hmm. Because
mm,
because there are tools, there are ways to overcome all of that. Claudia?
mm,
Thanks. I was just thinking about how different things could have been if I had been able to learn within the couple how to feel safe. I think that to me, that was a key thing. You feel safe to communicate my needs, what I wanted, and the other person as well to feel safe. Because I think that after that day, nothing was the same. And we started losing trust in each other little by little every day until everything crashed.
Mm,
Thank you.
Mhm. And that's the
mm,
hard part, is how do you overcome that? How do you get past that? Which is coming next week, or not next week, in 2 weeks.
mm, mm. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like it's so much. Has anybody ever lost? Anybody ever just like when you're thinking about this and thinking like how Claudia was just saying, has anybody ever just you just think about, and not even where you just sort of think that you've lost hope and it's all like, has anybody ever had that conclusion that this must mean that this is not my person? Anybody here? I know I've heard it a lot from people. This must mean that this is not my person. Because and I'm saying this is my person because that's the language we be using these days. But has anybody ever felt like, you've been in a thing and this must mean this trouble that we're facing, this burnout that I'm feeling, or these feelings that I'm feeling must mean that this isn't my person? Hmm. I see a few hearts on that. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's common to feel that way. Like,
But why do
yeah,
we
there's,
go to that if we know that we are not perfect, and if we know that we have our things, are we disillusioned even about ourselves sometimes in the midst of these marriages and relationships? So then now it's almost like a silent projection onto another person, because our things are coming up and we're not even really truly seeing us and seeing, um, that or even just recognize I'm just really burned out. It's not that this is not my person. It's just that I only have, I'm only at 80 today, or this season of my life, I've only been at an energy of 80, and I don't have the other 20 to make up for it. And it just looks like we just keep clashing and clashing and clashing and clashing. So then this must not be my person. But anyway, I see Beth Ann's hand. Go ahead, Beth Ann.
Hey, sorry, I missed some of the class. I got kicked out of circles for a little bit, and I didn't have good reception. So,
Okay.
what I was going to say was that yeah, I think that after you try, because I was with someone for total 34 years, 4 years separated in the same house, which was a complete nightmare. Um, is that you just when someone doesn't have a growth mindset and they don't admit that they need to change and grow, or they might for like a day or two and then they go back to their same old ways, and they just want to be right more than getting along, then
mhm,
sometimes you know when it's time, you know what I'm saying, and you've done everything you could possibly
Mhm.
and then some. Like for me, in my case, I stayed too long. And so that was, you know what I mean? I'd never be the person I am today if I didn't get away from that. So
Mm,
I know that with that, when someone starts sucking the life out of you, filing your mind down, getting you to disbelieve in yourself, gaslighting you to the point where you have a minus value, um, shaming you in front of your kids, shaming you in public, um, then you know what I mean? It's time to, you know what I mean, think about, okay, what is my purpose in life? Is this really what God intended for me?
mm,
So I hope I'm on track. I apologize if I'm not. I'm just trying to answer your question as best I can. And
mhm.
like I said, I got kicked out of circles for a little bit, so I do apologize if I'm off track somehow.
No, it's all good.
no,
It's all good. Go ahead, Dr. Tracy.
no. I mean, and I think that falls a little bit out of I mean, you're not off track in the fact that that is a totally different, that's reason that you can say, okay, this isn't going to work. That would be that,
Hmm.
that's that disillusionment. Like I'm not sorry, not disillusionment. That's that time to say, I'm done. I'm done with
Hmm.
this. And, but the idea is that if it's unhealthy, we never want to stay in an unhealthy relationship. Never. What we want is a healthy relationship. And if somebody can't respect you and your boundaries and is doing anything, any type of abuse at all, which is what you what you shared, then I would never say, oh yeah, we need to try to reestablish or figure out a way to make this work, because it wouldn't be making it work unless that person truly got help and changed their behavior. But we're not in charge
Hmm.
of them. We're only in
Hmm.
charge of ourselves. We can't make anybody else change. We can only change who we are. And we want everyone to be healthy. But we also want, as part of being healthy, you have to have a healthy relationship. If that part isn't healthy, you're not healthy.
Hmm.
And I noticed he didn't have a healthy relationship with himself. And that was the
Mm-hmm.
problem. He was toxic to his own well being in so many ways. He was on a self destructive path. And, we're the chooser over our choices. So I couldn't choose anything different. I could try to pray for him. I did everything I could and then some. And it just, it's up to the person whether they want to willfully, have something to work with so you're not burnt out, like spending energy or expending energy on negative, type of behaviors and patterns that people have that they're not willing to admit. Yes, I'm human. Yes, I'm flawed. Yes, I need to work on that. Yes, I'm sorry. I make mistakes. You know what I mean? Having something to work with is so absolutely important in order to stay in, because I would have stayed in if he would have gave me half of what I gave him. I gave him 100% as much as I could. But like, if he would have gave me half of that, I still would have been unhappy and stayed in. But I was lonely. I was so lonely being married because I had to abandon myself for someone else. And did that burn me out? Yes. It was
Hmm.
time for me to exit that toxicity.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Hmm. I have a question. When you say had to burn yourself out, like, or had to abandon yourself, what did the person make you do that?
Well, it was kind of like, when you're, since I'm a Christian, trying to follow God's order as best as I could. God hates divorce, feeling that shame and blame and guilt, wearing that robe of unrighteousness, those filthy rags, and not being able to navigate how to be like having a sense of self. Um, you know what I mean? And I just what did you say about
Did they
abandoning
make you
yourself?
abandon? Did they make you
Yeah.
abandon yourself?
Well,
Because we
they
say,
didn't
and I,
make me. It was so toxic that I couldn't. I didn't have a sense of self anymore. That's where it got. He had filed my mind down so bad. I barely made it out of there. It's a miracle I made it out of there. And I had a lot of health issues too that I've, through prayer and, rewiring my brain and studying neuroplasticity, I've been able to, get past a lot of things. But, still I'm on
okay,
my healing journey and there's no timeline. I hope I
yeah,
answered
yeah.
that.
I just always ask that question because I hear a lot of people say a lot of, and not necessarily saying you're doing this, but it's like, or doing this in this kind of intentional way. But I hear a lot of people say they broke me down. They did this, they did that. And the thought sometimes comes to my mind is even when I think about burnout, it's like we're in control of us. So even if someone is drawing too much, who's the person that says stop? It's like if I'm in a relationship with someone, I have to be the one to say stop. So it's like it makes me wonder how much how can I put it? How much burnout that we experience is really coming from our inability to say no, or our inability to say stop. And I do get it. It's like sometimes we, we're there, we're sticking in it and we're going in it, but it's like to some degree, it's almost presented as if it's the other it's a blame to the other person instead of a responsibility taken on ourselves to say, you know what, I just went, and I heard you say, I did hear you say, Beth, thing, I stayed longer than you know, stayed longer than I should, or I didn't correct things, or didn't have the ability to correct things in the way that I could have. But I hear that a lot, just globally. We always say, well, this person broke me down. They made me have low self-esteem, all of these particular different things. And it's like, it's all on them in some senses. And I wonder how much we play the role in our own burnout versus someone just sucking us dry, So that was why. So you did answer, but that's what I was just wondering with that. Go ahead, Spirit. I see you.
Hey, yeah. You kind of said what I was gonna say. Through this journey, I've learned accountability and taking ownership, and although things were done to me, and I was mistreated and not treated very well in my marriage. There is some accountability and some ownership that I have to take on. It's not the other person's fault that you respond the way you respond, you reacted the way you reacted. Those are things that I had control over. So if my response or my reaction caused conflict or caused part of the breakdown, I gotta own that. And I don't really think it's a finger pointing thing of who to blame. It's we were broken people coming together, bonding over trauma. So then you really can't point a finger either way. We both, and I can say a lot of things, and I have shared a lot of things that happened in my marriage that people just can't believe. Like, oh my God, that's horrible. But I also, my communication was terrible, awful. I avoided confrontation or any kind of conflict because I didn't want to argue. So it was easier to just let him be right all the time. And did he make me do that? No. So it's just the ownership. Like, why did I do that? People wouldn't believe that I was allowing somebody to treat me that way. That's not how people know me, but I was doing it. And I can't blame him for how long I stayed.
Yeah. And I guess that's why Beth Ann was saying too, like I was abandoning myself, or I had abandoned myself.
Oh, absolutely. It was a betrayal.
Thank you.
It was a betrayal to myself, for sure. Because and that's why I think when I think back on it, how unhappy I was, and it was a facade because I wasn't being who I really am. And it takes effort and work to try to be somebody else.
Oh my goodness, does it? Sorry, I felt that.
That's where the stress and the anxiety and the depression, because I am trying to force something that's not right. But the shame, the guilt, the fear, all of that, when that comes into play, you do stay. But that was my choice to stay. So I gotta make sure going forward that I don't make these same mistakes, and I address things when I'm feeling it, and not let that buildup happen.
Yeah. And I see a question in there from Aaron. How do you tell the difference between unhealthy and resignation when there isn't abuse? And, and I think even Spirit kind of talked about it a little bit, which is why I asked that question, Spirit, not to ignore you, because I did recognize you were speaking.
No, go ahead. No, it's fine. You said the difference between unhealthy and what?
Resignation. When there is an abuse, it's when you lose yourself.
Oh, yes.
Yes. When you lose yourself because you're afraid to be who you are. That is just being unhealthy. And that's that unhealthiness part of it. You want to be who you are, and you want to be comfortable being who you are. You want to be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, "Yep, that's me. That's me. I'm going." You see the good, bad, and ugly, and I
Mm.
Well,
don't
where
care.
along the way,
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Spirit.
where along the way did that get lost? That I'm okay with me, I'm happy with me, I like me. And along the way that got lost because now I'm this, I'm the representative of me in that
Mm.
marriage, in that relationship. I was my representative. Me got lost somewhere. And she stayed gone for years.
Mm. Mm. Wow.
I'm just now finding her this year, and I don't, it's awkward. I don't know how to be sometimes in certain situations because I don't have that part anymore. That part of my life is gone. So now it's, yeah, finding me, and I know the importance of doing that before I get into something else.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's that important part, is that you want somebody who's going to really, who is going to love you for you and not for any other reason. Nothing else?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, did you call on me? I'm sorry. I'm driving.
Yes, yes, I
Okay.
did.
Yeah, and I just didn't believe in divorce. You know what I mean? I just didn't. I was just totally devoted all those years, and I I had a big conflict even with my beliefs and and God, and you know what I mean, God hating divorce. So I think once I got that shroud off of me of lies, realizing that God loves me and He doesn't want me to be in a toxicity kind of abusive, self-destructive, kind of life that takes me away from my purpose and my value as a human being. Um, I have no regrets for the choices I made as far as the things I had to go through. I was abused on many different levels my whole life. And so I'm very self aware now. And, you know, I know who I am and why I'm here and what my purpose is. So if those things led me to be who I am today, then so be it. But yeah, it was, I I've already processed all of this. I'm 4 years out, and it's been a phenomenal journey of learning how to love myself,
Mm.
and I'm still learning how to have boundaries within my own self, so I can um, show up as my best in each moment.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow. Wait,
in
Doctor.
reality though, and that's where sometimes we have to look back on these relationships, even the ones that are not there, and be thankful for them, because without these relationships, you wouldn't be where you're at today.
Mm.
So they're not all there. They were bad at the time, but the end result was something good.
Mm. So what
It
I
was just
hear
that.
is relationships
Go
are
ahead.
important.
Yeah,
That's
they
just
are
what.
important.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
They are important. Every single one of them. The the bad ones the bad ones are showing you what you don't want.
Mm.
The good ones are showing you what you do want. And
Yeah.
in every relationship you have, from your parent relationship into friendship relationship into romantic relationship, is actually, there's a lesson to be learned. It's whether or not you've learned the lesson.
Mm. Well, how many of us are learning a lesson? Yeah, learning the lesson. And I think the greatest one too, like thinking about that, the greatest one is not to abandon ourselves and to be able to stay ourselves in the midst of it, because I think that gives us the fuel and the wisdom to know, like all of the stuff that you're laying out, Dr. Tracy, to know when to recognize when I'm starting to burn out, and that I need to be able to do something about it. That it's time for me to actually do something about it. Wow. Wow.
There's a choice to make.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. Yeah.
I
Go
see
ahead.
Spirit saying,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I
go ahead,
just wanted to
Spirits, and then
say
we'll check out.
really quick that I know I came in late, but I do appreciate this conversation, and I think it also can apply to all relationships when that burnout happens. I'm in the conversation just listening. I'm thinking of burnout with friendships and other relationships that it
Mm-hmm.
applies to other relationships as well. So I just wanted to say I appreciate the
Mm-hmm.
conversation.
Yep. Yep. That's why I was saying too. People's like, I've had some people ask, "Do I got to be married?" No, not really. You know, you can be married, can be divorced, can be in a long-term relationship, can be in some friendships. You know, or just want to know what it means and the tips, the tools, and preparing yourself for the future. You know, it's like, so that's what I love about circles and a lot of these master classes is that a lot of things that we speak about here, a lot of things we talk about here can, and you all always hear me say, open your heart for wisdom. Just open your heart for wisdom because as the facilitators and you all share certain things, there's wisdom being spoken. And although it may not hit your exact situation, that wisdom will flow like water and it'll go right where it needs to go into the cracks of your life or into the areas of your life so that it can help you stay whole and mended and a healthy contributing member of society. So it's just so wonderful. I hope y'all are enjoying this. I really do. Please, 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 please leave a review. Um, Type a little something if you enjoyed the session or enjoying the sessions. We do have a Dr. Tracy, can you remind me? We have one or two more. What is it?
I think we have two more because I think we're going to go a little bit more talk about. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. You're going to. I said
Uh-oh,
we're
did we lose you? You broke up. We can hear you now.
going to continue on by talking about the science of marital burnout, the risk of marital burnout, and then we're going to finally conclude with what do we do with it?
Okay. All right,
How do we
cool.
overcome it? So we're going to say that we have two more. Um, And the last one will be, I believe, December 8th. I will not be here next week because my son's coming to visit. So I need to be with him.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, y'all. All right.
Let
Again.
me respond to a real message real quick. I think it's easy to mistake being stuck for need and need for love. Love has a choice. Need is not independent. Since both have intense emotions, when we are stuck, it causes us to mistake the two. Yes, that's correct. Thank you, Claudia, for that.
Clarita. It was Clarita.
It's Clarita? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So sorry,
Yeah.
Clarita. Yes, thank you, Clarita. Sorry about that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. All right, people. I always love sharing space with you all and being here. And I think Dr. Tracy is helping us, y'all. So I hope that we can really take these things and just kind of really take them to heart and put them where we need to put them so that we can do what we need to do. Make it do what it do. Make it do what it do, folks. All right. Until next time for marriage burnout. Right. So not next week, but the week following. We do have a masterclass next week, but it's going to be a different topic. But then the following week we'll be back with marriage burnout. All right. All right. So please leave a review so that we can know how we're doing with this and see where we need to go with it. All right. I'll leave it every. What's that question?
Can I ask a question real quick? Is Dr. Tracy coming back?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great, great.
Yep. Yep. All right. Okay, folks.
Thank you.
Signing out. Thank you, Dr. Tracy. Send us some love, y'all.
See y'all
Peace.
later.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.